Hi, lovely people. Welcome to this week's live. I'm so excited to have you here because we're talking all about the causes and treatments of anxiety throughout your menstrual cycle. So, first of all, understanding that the anxiety might be chronic and that's why you're experiencing it in every phase. And that is effectively caused by having an overactive sympathetic nervous system. So you might have heard of fight, flight, or freeze mode. That's basically just what it means. And it just means you're constantly on the lookout for a threat, effectively. That's what's happening biologically. And this might be because of things like stress or trauma or unprocessed emotions. So just having that basic understanding of what causes anxiety to be happening all the time. And you'll know this is you if you're like constantly taking just short, sharp breaths into your chest, or if you notice that you're not really breathing a lot of the time as well. We often do this when we're like concentrating at our desk and like holding our breath. So notice if that's you. And also if you get cold hands and feet, even on a warm day, you find that your extremities are cold, and that's because when we're in fight and flight mode, we don't really need the warmth on our skin so much. We just need the energy in our muscles and in our brain. So that's a really clear indicator that anxiety has become really chronic. So now talking about what happens to anxiety throughout the cycle. Welcome to whoever's just joined. If you've got any questions as we're going through, I'd love to answer those. Or if you're watching afterwards, you can drop them down in the comments. So it's really important to track your cycle and track what kind of anxiety shows up in the different phases of your cycle so that you can get a general picture of what's causing anxiety for you. However, I am going to go through and just give some general examples, drawing from either, because I used to experience really chronic anxiety, so I got really clear on what was happening in different phases, but also what some of my clients, friends, family have discussed with me as well. And there are sort of patterns that come up with this, which I think is quite interesting. So first of all, in your inner winter, and this is when you're menstruating, you're bleeding, anxiety can often be caused by doing way too much because your body's trying to get into chill mode and concentrate on bleeding. So if you're running around doing 1,000 things, you're probably going to experience quite a lot of anxiety. It can also be in this phase because there's too much going on around you. Even if you're not doing very much, you're too overwhelmed by things like social media, loud music, being like touched too much as well can be a bit annoying. So things like that can actually really contribute to anxiety. And it can also be shame around bleeding as well. I know a lot of clients have experienced that, especially if they're coming from different culture backgrounds. Well, to be honest, most cultural backgrounds don't speak really positively about menstruation. So yeah, just noticing what one of those might resonate for you. And if you've got any more suggestions about what comes up for you in each of the phases, particularly in winter as we're talking now, then you can drop that in the comments down below. So moving on to your inner spring. So this is when you've just come off your period. It's that kind of week afterwards where there's almost this like drive to start getting everything done that you didn't manage to do while you were bleeding because you were focusing on resting. Well done. And what we have to understand about what's happening hormonally here is that our hormones are still gradually creeping up. So they're still quite low in this inner spring phase. So again, we can feel quite overwhelmed with everything we've got to do, this urge to do everything. We've not really got the hormones to support that. And we can find that we're quite burnt out. Additionally, in this phase, if you didn't get a chance to rest while you were bleeding, we can find that we're really run down in this phase as we come off our bleed, just making everything much more difficult to do, really. So that's a lot for spring. And also if you've got any kind of childhood trauma or unprocessed emotions around that age, they often come up in our inner spring because this links really strongly to that phase of our lives. So moving on to summer, and this is when our estrogen is high, and honestly, for me, I used to find that really overwhelming. So I'm quite a relaxed, chill person. So having that rise in estrogen and feeling like I've got to take on the world and do everything was quite mentally draining in a lot of ways. So just being kind to yourself, and yes, you might feel like Superwoman in this phase, but you can still take it easy a little bit. It's okay. Especially if you've got a kind of chronic overactive sympathetic nervous system, so you're always in fight and flight mode, the high levels of estrogen can really exacerbate that in the body at this time. So it can make you actually feel more physically anxious. Another thing that comes up a lot in this phase is because we're ovulating, it relates a lot to our sexual energy. So if you've got any sexual trauma in your past, or there's problems or issues around not wanting men to find you attractive or women to find you attractive, then that can show up quite a lot in this phase, because we actually, we look more attractive in this phase. Our skin's better, our hair is more shiny, and we release kind of pheromones that like someone across the street, or I know a friend that said that just randomly, like all of her exes would get back in touch with her when she was ovulating. So this can kind of get onto an esoteric level, which is quite interesting. So yeah, that's kind of an issue around summer. And also finally, obviously you're ovulating, so there can be, if you're trying to become pregnant, there can be a lot of pressure to have as much sex as you can, and a lot of emotions that come up around that. So that's another common cause of anxiety in your inner summer or ovulation phase. And then coming to your inner autumn. So this is your premenstrual phase, and interesting things happen with our hormones here. So first of all, just after ovulation, all of our hormones drop off quite a bit, and that can produce quite a lot of anxiety. Then progesterone creeps up again, and progesterone is actually really good at handling anxiety because it kind of chills us out a little bit. However, that rise in progesterone, which is trying to chill you out, can be very stressful if you've got lots to do. So again, that might be a cause. And then just before we come onto our bleed, all the hormones again dip down completely. So we've not really got that chill aspect or the estrogen that's the feel good, boosting our sense of well-being. So that can again be another cause producing a bit of anxiety. And you might also feel anxiety about coming onto your period, especially if you experience a lot of pain or emotions that come up for you during this time. You can check out the causes and treatments for depression video to give a bit of a clearer idea of why you might be feeling really down in this phase, and that can obviously contribute to anxiety. So I think that's pretty much everything for the causes. And again, it's really important to look into what's coming up for you. I'm just giving some general ideas here. Now, moving on to quick fixes, what we have to understand about anxiety is that it's not so much, we might have thoughts related to anxiety, but it's more a physical symptom that's happening in the body that then produces sort of anxious thoughts in the mind. So when we're really feeling anxious, the most important thing is to calm down the body, and that's where we're going to focus. And what's really interesting is this has been proven extensively in research studies, is that when we slow our breath down, there's a direct link to the heartbeat, and we can slow our heartbeat down. And when our heartbeat slows down, that calms down the body as a whole. So I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling really anxious, I'm literally like heart beating out of my chest. So step 1, slow down your breath, and that has a really nice ripple effect. So the first thing we need to know about deep breathing is breathing into the stomach. You can't really see my stomach here, but your stomach, not your chest. So it's really helpful to place left hand on your chest and your right hand on your lower abdomen, just below your belly button. And as you breathe in, Just notice which hands move and which don't. So for a lot of people with chronic anxiety, you might be a real chest breather. But when we actually breathe into our belly and really into our lower stomach, we activate the vagus nerve, which really helps to calm down the nervous system. Actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest mode. So just noticing where you're breathing into, continuing to take a few deep breaths, and really trying to send that breath down to the stomach. You can imagine your stomach's growing large like a balloon as you breathe in, and releasing as you breathe out. So if that's kind of difficult to coordinate, which is really normal because especially for women, we're kind of taught to hold our stomachs in a lot of the time. So just practice that. Practice breathing deep into your stomach. It's called diaphragmatic breathing, and that's a great place to start. However, putting this onto speedy mode, once we've nailed the diaphragmatic breathing, we can bring in the 4-7-8 breath. Now, you might have heard a lot of different ratios thrown around about this, effectively inhaling for a count of whatever, holding the breath and exhaling. The reason I choose 4-7-8 is because that's what the ancient yogis did, and it stood the test of time. So I just think personally it's the one that I want to put most of my faith into, and it's been really, really effective for me personally and lots of my clients. So what we do is we breathe in through the nose for a count of 4, we hold the breath for a count of 7, and we exhale through the mouth for a count of 8. Now, if you want to do this in the really traditional way, we place the tongue on the roof of the mouth just behind the teeth, like so. And that presses on one of the acupressure points in our body, which really helps to get this going, keep the energy inside. There's lots behind that as well, which I won't dive into. But just bear in mind that when you're breathing out, you'll have to breathe out around your tongue. So it might be worth just practicing that. You'll get the hang of it, I'm sure. But yeah, if the tongue thing feels a bit weird, it's not a requirement. It just kind of ups the level a little bit. So what we want to do is just 4 rounds of the 4-7-8 breath. And I'm going to lead you through that breathing exercise now. So start by exhaling fully through your mouth. If you're choosing to place the tongue on the top of the mouth behind the teeth. And inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And continuing for 2 rounds by yourself. And when you've completed your 4th round, just taking a few natural breaths in and out of the nose, noticing how you feel. Okay, so that should have worked really effectively, hopefully, to calm your heartbeat down if you are feeling anxious. And you can do anything that calms your heartbeat down. So if there's something else that you know works really well for you, it might be going for a gentle walk, doing a bit of yoga asana poses, practice, really whatever makes you feel good, even going outside and having a cuppa breath of fresh air. So just working out what's best for you. So now moving on to the treatments, the long-term preventative. So 2 things here. First of all, cycle tracking is really great, tracking what makes you feel anxiety in different phases and getting to the root cause of those issues. So if it's things in your childhood that are coming up in your inner spring, getting to the root of that. If it's sexual trauma that's coming up during ovulation, getting to the root of that. If it's stress around not becoming pregnant in a winter when you're bleeding, then getting to the root of all of these things is really important. However, that's more the mental side of things. And as I explained, it's more about the body. So what we want to be doing is activating our rest and digest mode as much as we possibly can every day. And it's far better to do 5 minutes every day than it is to do 1 hour on a Saturday. So this 4-7-8 breath, I didn't time it, but I think it takes 1 to 2 minutes. And if you do this just twice a day for 4 rounds, you will notice huge improvements very quickly. Now, you're welcome to do it more than twice a day, but at an absolute minimum, twice a day, every day, and really commit to it as a practice. You'll be amazed at the changes it makes in your life. My whole life I've had cold hands and feet, and now I don't have that anymore, and it's incredible to me that that's even possible. I used to feel like I was having a low-grade anxiety attack constantly, and that's not something I experience anymore, and I cannot tell you what that feels like. It's actually making me feel a bit emotional talking about it, but yeah, like, to really get to the root of this is an absolute game changer. So now, bringing in the daily self-care, cycle tracking, 4-7-8 breath, 4 times a day, 4 rounds of that twice a day. And then after the first month, you can increase that to 8 rounds twice a day. So and it might make you feel a little bit lightheaded when you first start doing it. That's not the goal. The goal, that's just kind of what happens when we're not used to it, but that will go away. And the goal is, of course, to calm down the body. So I hope this helps. And if you've got any questions or comments about any of this, then drop them below. And if you'd like to reach out to me for some additional support or just letting everyone know what's going on with you and sharing your struggles or your wins around this in the group, that would be really awesome to hear from you. I always love to feel inspired and excited by what's going on in you guys' lives personally. Alrighty, so next week is our final video in this little series of common symptoms and causes and treatments for them, and we're going to be talking about cravings. So look out for that one. Really important and a big one to tackle, so we'll get into that. Alrighty, all the best for now. Lots of love.